This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by Nissan. Adventure calls in the first ever Nissan Rogue Rock Creek. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Here we go. Hi, Pashi.
Hi, Sufi.
You're looking dapper. Also, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you. I thought I thought like it was New Year, New You.
Oh.
Best foot forward.
So this is you. This is your Project 2025 is to dress nicer?
I thought we were. I thought it was
you thought you told me that.
Yeah. Maybe it was just subtle.
With that said, I feel like I look nicer than normal. I'm wearing a collared shirt at least.
Yeah. I'd say you're moving on.
So it's 8 a.m. in L.A.
Yeah.
So you woke up and you put on a suit for a podcast.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not just any podcast. It's
okay. And as a reminder, there is a video element over on YouTube, so people could go check out Pasha's nice suit.
Yeah, but if it's too much, then I guess it's too much. But I mean, our guest today, I felt like also called for it.
Oh, that's right. He's in suits. Patrick Adams is in suits. So you wore a suit for a podcast, one, because it's a new you, and two, because suits.
Yeah, maybe I won't wear it for the full interview. Mm-hmm. Now I'm starting to rethink it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will, who don't wear suits often will like put on a suit and be like, I can't even like move in this thing. And suits can be very comfortable.
I know, but I will say now that I don't wear a suit on the show, when I put a suit on, I do feel I can't move in this thing.
I mean, classically, historically, Dad always would wear a suit to work. And he would come home, and the first thing that would happen was we'd go upstairs while he would change into something more comfortable.
Yeah.
Not that shouldn't sound creepy.
Yeah, it did. With the way you said it did.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah. He was definitely happy to get out of his suit.
Yeah. And we would like jump around on the bed while he went into the closet and put on some jeans.
You know what Axel wore to school, his last day of school? Not a suit, but he wore a full Santa costume to school. Oh, look, Jorma Tacconi's here, who's not... This isn't his podcast, but he's here.
Hey, Jorm.
I'm here. What are we talking about, guys? Santa? I love Santa.
So Jorma and I do a different podcast called The Lonely Island and Seth Meyers Podcast. And
we do.
We have to record, Jorma and I have to record something else after Josh and I record something. And this is very on brand for Jorm to be showing up at the wrong time.
Very on brand. But everybody likes seeing and hearing me. So, I feel like it's good to jump in.
Do you think Jorm could do what we're doing, Josh, and pretend like it's actually January?
I don't know. Let's see.
Happy New Year, Jorm.
Happy New Year, Jorm.
Hey, good to see you guys. Yeah, what are your resolutions?
Josh is going to start wearing a suit.
I'm wearing
I'm going to hit the gym more because of my love for Biore.
Oh, yeah. That stuff's soft.
That stuff's soft. You can pick out different stuff. Jorm, hypothetically, if it was, let's say, December 20th, what are your plans for the holidays?
We're heading out to the Bay on Sunday. My mother, we're staying at my mom's house. She's going to Mexico City, so not saying her, but the Hellers are in the Bay. So
are you really going to stay at your mom's house and she's not going to be there?
Not going to be there. She's my brother's in Mexico City. He's dating a woman who lives there. And so, yeah, I've never been. I would love to go to Mexico City.
I've never been either.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's real cool, you guys. I think there's a lot of artists and cool stuff happening there.
Yeah. It's a high elevation. You think like, oh, Mexico, it's going to be like right on the water. But no,
I flew in there once and I felt like I was flying into the city for like 20 minutes. There's so many buildings. It is so big. And it felt like it was just like, oh my God, this is the never ending city. But yeah,
that elevation thing is what gets me every year in my holiday travel to New Mexico, which is everybody I tell I'm going to New Mexico says, oh, well, at least it'd be nice and warm. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's cold, right?
It's on top of a mountain. It's super, It's,
Do you get nauseous? Like, do you have to like reacclimate?
I get
when
nauseous.
he hits the bottle. When he hits the bottle,
I-
too hard.
Yeah. Well, you got to get through the holidays, right, guys?
Every time I go to Albuquerque, the only thing that makes me nauseous is the unfair reviews that MacGruber got.
By the way, Mari recently was like, she's like, her movie's a little bit more controversial. She's gotten like lower reviews.
This
than
is is Night Bitch. Yorma's wife, Mari Heller, just directed a movie with Amy Adams called Night Bitch, which I have not seen yet, but I encourage everybody to see.
It's great. I think it's fantastic. But she is a little, she's just like not used to like getting more controversial reviews. And I'm like, and I immediately was sending her MacGruber Rotten Tomatoes. I'm like, oh yeah, it's time for you.
Yeah,
35%
and
audience
we can
rating.
speak from experience. We're huge MacGruber fans. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So take those reviews and shove
You're in
them.
that 35% of positive.
The other thing about MacGruber, if you're looking for a holiday movie that's under the 90-minute mark, that's what you got going for you, MacGruber. What, a lean and mean 87 minutes?
Lean Mean 87 minutes. Like I don't see the uncut version because like both me and Akiva, I think are guys who like the director's cut is shorter than the original.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do not like that there's an extra like 3 minutes in the uncut version.
Well, I feel like I don't know what else to say. It's just super weird that Yorm's here, but I kind of love it. It feels like they're...
I'm still on finish time, guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Been a week.
Yeah, we just had Oliphant on, and he was talking about that Finnish licorice.
He's a fucking joy. I
Yeah,
gotta
he really
send you
is.
this video. We did a thank you video to Finland, and I was like, "Hey, well, let's go shoot this music video." And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "What are you doing on Saturday?" He was like, I'm stuck here, man. Like, what else am I doing?" So we filmed a little music video. It's 20 seconds. I'll send it to you guys. It's just him popping in a frame saying "Kiitos," which means thank you in Finnish. Kiitos.
A 20-second music video saying thank you really will mean the world to the people of
Just
Finland.
like a real waste of time.
Well, we're going to just to try to, for the people who are listening to this for Josh and I and not Yorm, we're going to get to our conversation with Patrick Adams. It's absolutely lovely. And as a reminder, go to the YouTube channel. You can watch this and you can see how genuinely surprised we were when Yorm showed up. Also,
Guys, I'm a lot of fun.
Also,
delighted.
We're taking family trips, stories or questions on a rolling basis. This is just whenever you want. Go to speakpipe.com/familytripspod. We do love to hear your stories, and we love to get your questions. And Happy New Year to everybody who's listening. We're
And to
very
Yorm.
excited. And to Yorm. Happy New Year to Yorm,
Happy
too.
New Year to you guys. Oh, it's going to be a good one, guys. I think everything's looking up.
Happy New Year to you, too, Jeff Tweedy. Sing us a song.
Family trips with the Meyers brothers. Family trips with the Meyers brothers. Here we go.
Whoa, whoa,
Hey,
whoa.
hello, Patrick.
Hi. Oh my God.
It is
Guys,
really
thanks for
nice.
having me.
It's really
We've
nice
never met.
anytime. We've never met.
We've never met. Actually,
And
that's
I
not
will
true.
say, where?
Beck and Kyle are dear friends of mine from SNL, and I came to see them a number of times because they stuck me in the back door, basically. And I think I met you once and said some weird stuff about how great you are, and then got really awkward and just bailed. So I think it was a good first meeting.
Well, as a credit to you, I'm glad I didn't remember that.
yeah. Let's do it. We'll rewind. We'll do better this time.
I want to jump in, and I know this isn't technically a family trip, but I guess it is because it was about a new family member, and you were in a car. So your second was like our second, came fast.
Oh yeah, I'm glad we start. I've always wanted to talk to you about this. Yes, I delivered my second in the front seat of the car. You were in the lobby?
We were in the lobby, so we hadn't even made it to the Uber. But you're in LA, so you're in your car, correct?
Yes, we were in our car. I had been shooting in Toronto. I got this job, and it was during COVID, and so no one was working. And I got this film in Toronto. We asked the doctor, "Can we do it?" He said, "You could probably get away with it." So anyway, I went up. She was very pregnant. The night I got home at midnight from Toronto, and she went into labor at 4 a.m.
Wow.
But our first labor was like 26 hours So we kind of were very lazy. We were like, we'll take the morning. There's no rush.
Oh.
And, we spent about 3 or 4 hours at the house. And then we were like, it's probably time to go. And then we got to the parking lot of Cedars-Sinai. And that's how far we got.
Wow.
Yeah. Do they
And
still
what-
charge you? Is there still a bill?
I love it. I love that you asked that question.
delivering
They
in the parking
did.
lot?
They did. I'm sure they're like Cedars-Sinai will come after me for this. But yes, my lawyer, who I don't remember why I had spoken to at the time. It's not normal to call your lawyer right after you have a baby. But I, for some reason, talked to him and he said, before you leave that hospital, go check the billing. And they had, in fact, charged me for delivery.
Wow.
Which charged insurance for delivery. But yeah.
We
Yeah,
had
yeah.
called 911 and then we were told we had to get in the ambulance and go to the hospital. My
But you
wife
had
was
already-
very...
The
baby was born. The baby was fine. Umbilical was cut. And Alexi was very much like, I think I'm ready to just go back up to the apartment. And they were like,
The
"No."
umbilical was cut like you just cut the umbilical cord?
A fireman did. How about that?
Oh.
Yeah.
But at what point in the process did the fireman get there?
The baby had been born. So the baby was sort of on my wife's chest.
How
And
was
then
it
they-
for you? What was this?
It was great. You know what? I recommend it. I just thought it was cool. I thought it was exciting. No, it was, thank God it was, and I'm sure you feel this way as well. Thank God it was our second. You know, that you'd actually seen it happen
been through
once.
it. Yeah.
Because
Totally.
I think certainly for a man watching it, every birth looks like something's going wrong. And yet
That's
you
such a
kind of
good way to
realize,
put
nope,
it.
this is just how it looks. And,
Yeah.
again, I was scared, but my wife is very on it. And I think she wasn't showing
Their
fear.
instincts are pretty sharp at that
Yes.
point. Yeah.
And I was kind of like, this is historically through the history of man, ultimately, like their instincts have been the one that have kept us alive as a species.
Yeah,
So,
just do what
yeah.
they say. It's a good way to go. It was funny because on the way to the hospital, like, in the first kid, you have like months of planning and you have
Yeah.
your laminated game plan that you're going to tell the doctors and your candles are in the bag. And the second kid, we had absolutely nothing. And we were on the way and we were like, what's the plan? What are we doing? And she said, all I care about is that you catch the baby. I want you to catch the baby. And I'm like, sure. Okay. Yeah, we'll catch the baby. And then lo and behold, 16
the
minutes
baby.
later, I'm holding a baby in a parking lot. So.
Well, job well done.
You
Yeah,
got the
she
baby.
got her way. She got her way.
I do want to. So you have two now. You stopped at two, or you have three?
That was our second.
All right,
yeah.
two. All right.
Stopped is yeah.
Oh
I
right,
think
you don't
we're
know.
Right
It's
in that
a COVID
zone.
baby. You're a COVID
Yeah.
baby. so
Yes,
there's
it was
stuff.
very much a COVID baby.
I want to get to your youth. We want to get to your youth. But is it true that you are currently a camper family that actually?
Yes,
drives it?
we have a camper van that we drive it across the country. We have a place up near Toronto now that belonged
Okay.
to my mother and stepfather, and we bought it from them 2 summers ago. So we have this camper van that we kind of fell into during COVID. We did that thing where everybody wanted to take a camper van trip, and we did a few, and we fell in love with it. And we thought maybe we're camper van people. And there was a company nearby here that was taking advantage of people who thought they were camper van people.
Right.
And they were like, for a very small fee of hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can make your own and we'll rent it out and you'll get a percentage of that rental and it'll pay itself off after a few years. And we were like, great idea. You use it 2 weeks of the year. The rest of the time it's being used by someone else. So we did it. We paid an enormous amount of money to make this thing. And then like 6 months later, the company folded and they were like, here's your van. And now we were full-time van owners. So we were thrust into, okay, we need to be a camper van family. So we drive across the country every summer.
Okay, so it's once a summer, and I guess there and back. How long does it take from? And I'm assuming is it north of Toronto? The lake
Yeah,
houses?
it's like that cottage country up there. The area is called Georgian Bay. There's like two.
yeah.
There's like a Muskoka and a Georgian Bay, and we're up in Georgian Bay.
So
I've been to
you-
the Georgian Bay. It's beautiful. up
Oh,
there.
it's beautiful. Yeah.
So
we
what's
love
the
it.
drive? LA to Georgian Bay.
Oh God, because we have 2 little kids, we try not to be in too much of a rush. So I think this year we did it in 8 or 9 days.
Great.
We stopped at a Great Wolf Lodge in Kansas City, like you have to, just to really drive it home. And yeah, we take about 8 or 9 days. We hit as many national parks along the way and stuff like that. But it's great. It's actually at the end of a crazy year, the kids are out of school. It's like a nice way to transition into like vacation time up there. It's also a nice way to drive us insane. We have it's a very high and low 8 days.
Do you have kids that are old enough to be excited about this kind of trip? Is there anticipation?
They are very into it. Yes, they're at that great age where they're kind of excited about everything, but then as soon as it starts, there's also the things they hate about it. So it is a lot of time in the car, but because it's a van, we can get them. This is probably not legal, but we let them, once we're in a good straightaway and we feel safe, they can go and lay in the bed in the back to read the book or look at the iPad. It's all about the iPad now. So for us, it's just the challenge of getting them to like look at the national park. And
do you get like a spot that you can pull up in a national park where you're like crashing in the park?
We actually don't do a lot of camping in national parks because it's pretty hard to get good sites in national parks. So that's what everybody wants to do. The good thing about the van is it's so self-sufficient that you can be anywhere. So it has power and it has solar on the top. And so you actually go and find what are called dispersed parking spots, which are not official campsites, but they're legal. So you can go like find a logging road and sleep in the middle of the wilderness in like a national forest where nobody's going to really bother you, but it's not quite as like built up as a national park campsite would be.
Are there ever scary moments? I know I once camped with just my dog on like BLM land, and there was like one car that was driving out this very sketchy dirt road towards me, and I just sort of stood with a shovel next to my car ready to like fight or flee.
Yeah,
I didn't
100%.
know. And then they drove by and I was like,
You're
oh my
sure
God, thank
this
God.
this is the murderer moment.
What is BLM land, Posh?
Bureau of Land.
Bureau of Land
Okay, gotcha,
Management.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And I've seen Josh with a shovel. It is. You do not
It's a
want to F
terrifying
with Josh.
It's like a camping shovel that like screws together. It's about this big.
I know. I have one of those in the back. Yes. Terrifying.
Yeah.
I was most scared. I'm scared when I'm not scared. I'm more alert when I'm alone. When we did the trip back, I just ended up getting a job that started shooting in Montana, where I literally just got back from yesterday. So I drove the van from Toronto to Montana by myself. With our dog. And I did a night of camping that was pretty sketchy and had me a little worried because mostly just bears at that point.
Right.
It was also in like northern Michigan, which there was just a lot of terrifying signage. It just did not feel like the place where you're like, if someone comes across me in the middle of the night, this might not be a great situation. But then you realize I'm in the middle of
things like no one's your friend here.
Yeah. Yes. Basically, death to all who enter.
How does your van handle? How do you feel behind the wheel? Do you have a confidence?
Great. It's a Mercedes. It's a Mercedes engine, so it's great. It's actually so fun to drive. The thing is, you get used to it though. So you're up above everything. You know, you're like above the traffic. And then when I get home and get in my normal car, I feel like I'm sitting on the ground.
Do you ever get broadsided by the wind though? Isn't that jarring? Yeah.
That's a thing. Yeah,
that's
for
a
sure.
real
That's the thing, and it's terrifying. That's the sphincter. That's the sphincter tightener for sure because it happens out of nowhere.
Do you share driving duties with your wife? Do you guys go back and forth a little?
Not as much as I should.
Yeah.
She actually we were just in Montana together and we were supposed to drive the van. It's all about how do we get the van from A to B. So we were there and I was going to have some time off. So we were going to drive it together with the girls from Montana to LA to get it home. Schedule changed. I had to shoot. And so it was the first time where she was like, I'm going to do it solo with the girls. We flew her brother up so that she had like a partner in crime. But it was the first time she had done the van without me in it. And she was nervous and it was a total success. She loved it. So I think
did she love not having you there?
Yeah, I think it was much better for her.
Right.
You could hear it in her voice, when I called her and she had like this sort of trucker, like with this confidence in her
she
voice.
changed.
Day two,
She
I was like, how's it
changed.
going? She's like, oh, we're doing great out here on the road. It's fine. I'm like, oh, okay.
Calling you good buddy.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors. This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by Nissan. It's time to fuel your inner adventure in the award-winning Nissan Rogue Rock Creek. So Josh, tell me about a recent time you connected with your inner adventurer.
Well, anytime it rains in LA, which isn't very often, I throw my gear on and I get out in it. And my dog Woody loves to get out there with me. And we'll start on a trail, on sort of a big fire road trail, but then we find those smaller trails where you need to crawl and get your hands dirty. And the wetter you get, the better you get. And yeah, that's what we like.
I love it.
What about you? Have you connected with your inner adventurer recently?
You know those squirrel suits where people jump off the sides of cliffs?
Oh, yeah.
I just watched a YouTube video of that. But my tummy, it gave me made my tummy feel weird.
Yeah. Careful. Don't watch too many of those. Whatever kind of adventurer you are, the Nissan Rogue Rock Creek is ready for you. Thanks to its intelligent around view monitoring with off-road mode, the Rogue Rock Creek helps brave adventurers like you and also Seth to navigate around narrow obstacles in tough terrain. Plus, with lava red stitching and Rock Creek embroidery, you're surrounded in style no matter where you go.
Up on Rogue Rock Creek, she sends me. Right?
Yeah, we don't have the rights.
We probably can't clear that. Nope. So thanks again to Nissan for sponsoring this episode of Family Trips. Adventure calls in the first ever Nissan Rogue Rock Creek. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Intelligent around view monitor cannot eliminate blind spots and may not detect every object. Drivers should always turn and check surroundings before driving. See owner's manual for safety information. Support comes from Rocket Money. Hey, Baji.
Yes, Uvi.
So most Americans think they spend about $62 per month on subscriptions. What do you think the real number is?
I don't know. I mean, that sounds about right.
Wrong. It's like $300.
Whoa.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
$238. I'm good at this stuff now because I'm teaching my kids math. $238. Even if just a couple of subscriptions fall off your radar, those recurring payments you don't even know about could really add up. And Pashi, you know me.
Yeah.
Nobody is worse at keeping an eye on their finances than old Sufi.
Oh, yeah. You shouldn't be in charge of it.
No. And thanks to Rocket Money, I barely have to be because they're the ones who say, hey, did you know you signed up for a fantasy football newsletter years ago that you have nary taken a peek at?
Probably
in the past
paying
7
like
years?
$12.99 a month for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that's no fantasy.
Well, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings.
It's not just that, Pashi, and how dare you think it just that. They also easily create a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track. See your monthly spending trends in each category and know exactly where your money is going.
One of my favorite features of Rocket Money is that they will even try to negotiate lower bills for you, sometimes by up to 20%. They automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you. They'll deal with the customer service so you don't have to.
They're the ones on the phone being like, hey, he doesn't need your help, you fantasy website, you.
Yeah.
He knows who the players are.
Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions.
Half of that's me.
Saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/trips. That's rocketmoney.com/trips. rocketmoney.com/trips.
Here we go.
Now, I feel like Montana, oftentimes people who have been on this pod and talked about it, that is a wonderful destination for a trip. I feel like you hit the jackpot that you booked a job there.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. I'd never been to Montana before, so it's so beautiful. It was so cool to have the van there because I could actually camp out for work. We're shooting on this huge ranch out there, and it's sort of far from where we're all living in Bozeman, so I was just camping out on this like property in the middle of nowhere, you know, having a campfire every night and then show up to work the next day. It's just the total opposite of what I've been used to, you know, being on Suits for so long, like shooting in the same office, wearing uncomfortable suits. So when I came off that show, it was like, please God, just let me shoot something outside. And so I got my wish, I guess. Yeah, it's
heartbreaking.
Stunning.
It's heartbreaking that one of the tidbits we've always learned is that already learned, I should say, is that the suits were uncomfortable in suits. Just what a it feels like it just.
How do you feel? How do you feel in a suit? I guess you don't wear a suit most.
I stopped wearing a suit and I feel great.
done.
I literally feel so much better. Just like for me, it's like the neck. Just
everything.
Yeah.
And then on TV, it's all the detail. They need to know how the collar interacts with this. And so it's like one of the hardest things of being on set ever is how much touching has to happen.
Yes.
There's always so much touching. And when you have a suit, there's just more to touch. There's more details. So there's just always hands adjusting things.
When I was in college, John Malkovich came and spoke at our college. And somebody, we had real theater kids, and they were asking him about movies and how the acting's different. And he was like, in a movie, right before you have to do a scene where you've heard that your mother has died, someone from the makeup department comes over, licks their thumb, and rubs something off your cheek. It's just like,
Exactly.
and then they're like,
Hold on,
action.
hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is. It's a lot. It's a lot of futzing. So
I want to know something quick because I've
Please.
become a fan of the show. I want to know how the wedding was. I feel super
great
invested.
question.
It was fantastic. It was it was exceptional. It was a long weekend, everything I had imagined. There were things that just worked out so well. Like Friday night, we didn't want to plan another event or something, so we were like, just book a reservation at the restaurant of the hotel with some friends. And
Where were you guys? Where was it again?
We were in the Catskills. We were at the Glen Falls house.
Beautiful.
Which we had rented out the whole place. So we had the whole place. And so my now wife and I and her mother and the maid of honor and her boyfriend, we had dinner at 5:00. And then people just kept coming in. And it's like a very small, cozy restaurant. And then eventually it was just like we had almost every table in the place, and you could musical chairs your way around and sort of, welcome people like that. There were, I will say, maybe 3 tables that weren't associated with the wedding. And Seth, I think, talked to all 3 of them because he didn't know
I
that.
thought they were guests. Yeah. I did think they were guests.
And they let
he'd
you
get
believe
him-
that. They wanted to keep you around.
I was talking to a guy who was there with like a 3-year-old, and like we talked for like 15 minutes, and I'm like, well, I'm very excited for my daughter to meet yours tomorrow. He's like, oh, I'm not going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah, I have
I'm
no
like,
idea
all
what
right,
you're
very
talking
good. Very good, very good.
How many people were at the wedding? How many were there?
It was 140.
Good number.
And and I was adamant about not knowing anything about the dress, and the dress was a banger.
Yeah.
It was great. She.
Wait, what ended up being the song? The last I've heard on the pod, we were trying to figure out what your song was going to be.
It's
coming down. Are we allowed to know?
Yeah. It's a Frankie Valli song. You're a song that I can't sing. Was a song, but although it was really like we had 16 songs that we had given the DJ, and he was like, "You gotta pick a song. We can't play 16 songs." And we were like looking at the tent on the day of the wedding, and like just walked through, and we were like, "We need to tell him something." So we were like, "This one." And it's one of the ones that Mackenzie was leaning towards anyhow. But we don't have a song. It's not, we love that song, but it's not like our song.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, I'm so happy for you.
Thank
That's
you.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you.
As somebody who doesn't know you at all, through now listening to the podcast, felt deeply invested.
It would have been a huge bummer if it was like, well, it was a dud.
Yeah.
We
She took her
did a
off,
lot of run up to
and-
it. It was a real.
Did you speak,
dud.
Seth? I'm assuming you had
did.
you spoke, Seth.
I did. I spoke. I was very emotional. I felt a great honored to have the burden of responsibility for putting into words how I felt about Josh. So,
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy for you, man. That's so great.
Thank you.
I don't know if I told you this, Josh, but Alexi was sitting with my eldest, stayed awake for the speeches, and I got up and I started my toast, and I started with a joke, and everybody laughed, and Alexi said Ash laughed really hard and then looked at her and shrugged like, I don't get it. But I like
Oh, great.
But I like that he was like, I'll play along, but I want you to know I don't get any of these jokes.
I'm not enjoying this.
I am not enjoying it, but I get that it's important to Dad.
Yeah. I also liked, because Axel was up for a little bit of like the earlier speeches, but anytime anyone swore, both boys would like look at each other and then look at Alexi like, that was a swear.
Yeah.
They get very excited and semi-shocked.
We're
every
awake
time
for
they hear one.
swearing.
We're up for swearing.
Oh, that's great.
Did you, is it safe to say, based on the fact that you bought this home in Toronto that was a summer house, that was a big part of your upbringing?
Yeah, it sort of was. It's interesting. Cottaging is sort of like a big deal in Toronto. That's like what everybody does there during the summer. Either
Does
you
it
go to
just
your
mean
own.
lake houses when you say cottage?
Yeah, so it's like, it's really, I grew up thinking that this was just sort of normal, but it's not. It's a very unique sort of part of the Canadian Shield up there. It's just lots of lakes. The thing with Muskoka is it's like lots of little lakes, and Georgian Bay is one huge body of water and a lot of like little islands. But you'd always in the summer take off to the cottage, whether yours or somebody else's. That was kind of, you wanted to get out of town. So we did a lot of renting of cottages growing up. We never owned one until after my folks got divorced. the man my mother ended up with was a big cottager, and so they went off and found this beautiful tiny little island in Georgian Bay. So it was something that I think they got divorced around like 15 or 16 years old. So I was already kind of doing my own thing on the summers, and I was also pissed at my mom for getting a divorce. And so I would go to the cottage, but it wasn't like where I'd spend the whole summer. I'd go for a week or two, bring some friends up there. So it was a part of my life. But like my little sister was there all summer and like working at the diner across the lake and doing camp. There's a little camp across the water for the kids. So, a lot of people would do the full like 2 months up there, and that wasn't my situation. But when we lost, my stepfather sadly passed 2 years ago, and the island is a lot of work. You got to, get everything out there. You got to, you do the grocery shop 2 hours away. You got to get it out, and all the garbage it's just an amount of work that my mom was not looking forward to doing. So she said, I think I'm going to sell the place, but if you guys want it, I'd love to sell it to you. So we're trying it out. It's kind of wild to have a place so far, but so we've done the last 2 summers there, and it's just magical. I mean, I think you guys know you spend a lot of time out of the city in the summer.
Based on how what a raw deal you got on the Sprinter van and the fact that Cedar Sinai made you pay, even though you had a baby in the car, I'm assuming your mom ripped you off. Your mom got you pay like 2 or 3 times.
She is a businesswoman. Come on.
Like totally took you for a ride on this house.
No, she gave us a very good. But she is a businesswoman. She like when she offered to sell it to us, she gave us the terms instantly. Like she had already thought about the contractual terms.
Did she do that thing of like, I don't know, is it crazy to sell? And you're like, I mean, should we buy it? And then immediately you get a fax.
She's
and
like, here
I need
it
to
is.
know in an hour.
Fax,
I have a lot of
dude.
interested buyers. You got to move fast.
She gave us very good terms, and she's very excited that I think that we're trying to like keep it going. But it is a little odd because it was not my. I have an emotional attachment to it, but it wasn't like the whole way I spent my summer. So we're kind of trying to like rebuild it for ourselves and figure out what it is for our family. But it's beautiful. I mean, it's a stunning way to spend the summer.
And is your mom then year round? Is she in Toronto?
So she actually has another place. So we're on an island, which involves all the work that we talked about. She's got another place that's on the mainland that she can just pull her car into. So she spends the summer there and is close by, but it's a lot easier. She can come and go by car. And we can, she can come out and visit by boat, but we're the ones out in the island.
Gotcha. Are you the only ones on the island?
Yeah, this always sounds like weird. Like it's just a small island. It is a very small island. You could throw a baseball over the island. It's a tiny little sort of piece of rock. But we're the only ones on it. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But you like there's an island, you could also throw a baseball at the next island, and there's those people.
Right.
Did they ever throw baseballs at your house?
We're constantly throwing baseballs.
There is one downside of this
Frisbee.
cottaging life is there's a
everybody.
lot of baseball throwing.
You got to keep your head on a swivel.
Because you're surrounded by baseball throwing islands. Does your mom can she take her own boat over to see you?
Yeah, she got a new boat. When my stepdad, rest his soul, he was the kind of guy who would never buy a new boat. He would buy only the oldest possible boat because he understood how to fix boats. So the idea of ever having a new boat that like just worked was insane to him, and he would never allow it. And so my mother and I, by virtue of his decisions, would always be driving around these boats that stank like diesel and felt like they were going to explode at any moment. So when we lost him and it was time for us to figure out the boat thing, we were both like, we're going to get new boats. It's a lot of money, but we just need to invest in this so that they work when they work. So yeah, she has her own and can get out to the island now.
Yeah, you don't want to watch your mom push off a tiny island on a boat that you're like 50-50.
Yeah, don't know. That's probably not going to make it.
But you know what? Still got a deal on the boat.
Yeah. He had like 4 of them too. We had to and when it was time to sell them. There's no selling it. It's like, please just take this. I'm going to charge you to take this boat away. That was the condition they were in.
He would when it was no longer technically a boat. He was like, I think it's time to move on.
Not seaworthy for sure.
So when you were a kid and you were sort of renting these cottages, was that exciting for you? Were you little when you were going up there? And you've got 2 sisters, am I right there?
Yeah, 2 sisters, older and younger, Meredith and Ariel. Yeah, it was always great. I loved getting out of town. My family wasn't like, the thing that we didn't do was like camping. So this was as close as we got to like nature, which was great. But I always felt like I wanted to be a camping family. Like I wanted to know what it was like to be in the tent and go backpacking and do all that. So that was stuff that later in life I sort of tried to teach myself or push myself to go do or get people to come do that with me. But as a kid, that was as close as we got to the lake and the trees and, nature. So it was always great to do it. And just a good way to spend time together. Both my mom and my dad were pretty devout workaholics. And so my memory of a youth was just like them being gone for long periods of time doing things. So when we got to the summer and got to be there, it was the time when we all got to just be together,
Yeah. What would you do for like school vacations? Would you travel anywhere else, or would you go see grandparents? Or
So my family was weird. My father was a journalist, like a foreign correspondent. And so we lived in Canada, and then we moved to London when I was like 7, and I was there for about 4 or 5 years. So we were closer to Europe at that point. And our vacations were always like a bit more adventurous. Like my dad was really devoted to like giving us cultural experiences. Like he wasn't a resort beach guy, even though we really wanted him to be. Like, can we just do the Disneyland thing maybe? He would be like, no, we're going to go to Israel. We're going to drive through the West Bank. We're going to go to Hong Kong.
And these weren't working vacations? This was just places he wanted his kids to see.
This was like, we are going to go have this experience. And it's an amazing gift. It didn't make for they were not relaxing vacations, moment of relaxation. They were always like, you'd kind of come back wide-eyed and like, oh my God, I saw a part of the way. It's exactly what he wanted, an education essentially. But, it was as we got older and then my parents got divorced, it was like, can we just go to Disneyland? Can you just take us to a resort? But we'd end up going to a resort, and within 2 days he'd be like, let's get out of here. Let's like go into town. Let's like go find like the weird part of the city. Cause that's what he did for a living. Like he was constantly surrounding himself in places like that. And I just don't think he really felt like alive unless we were in those environments. So yeah, our vacations were always, definitely educational, sometimes a little scary. We'd get into some hairy situations. And
do you remember a time like where you were like this, even as a kid, you were clocking like, this isn't where we should be right now?
Well, yeah. And I mean, like we're like scary to talk about because obviously Israel's hot button, but like that trip to Israel was pretty crazy. I mean, my mother, well, where did it start? It started with us like going to the airport, obviously. And my sister, who at the time is like 16, 15, and is just a total nightmare teenager at that point and wants to make everyone's life hell. And we're in the security line to get onto the plane to go to Israel from London. And so they're taking it very seriously and going through everything. And they grab her guitar and they're looking at her guitar and looking inside of her guitar. And that little 15-year-old looks at the guard and is like, what, you think I put a fucking bomb in it?
Yeah.
And the whole airport shut down. They put her in a security room. They said the flight was not taking, like it was so intense. And finally they released her after 2 hours. She never saw the guitar again, gone. That was the beginning of the Israel trip. That was like the Griswolds go to Israel essentially.
Now, I obviously think that was an overreaction to somebody pretending they had a bomb. I don't think that's an overreaction to somebody who travels with a guitar. I think anytime someone comes to the airport with a guitar and is not on their way to a paid gig,
did us
you
a
should
favor
shut
in a
down
way.
The
If you
airport.
think about it,
shut it down.
And then that trip, so many crazy things happen, but it ends with my mother going, "We should drive through Hebron."
Right.
Like just
so
go
your
for
mom,
a drive.
Your mom's complicit here in this, like.
Well, but my mom, I think it was like my memory was. I asked them about this because my memory was we should drive through Bethlehem was my memory because that's Bethlehem and we should go drive through it. And my dad says it's Hebron, and I haven't looked at a map recently. I'm not sure how close they are. But anyway, not a part of the world you're supposed to be driving around with yellow Israeli license plates, which we had because we had been spending most of our time in Israel. And as we were driving through Hebron, our windows all got smashed by rocks. And that was like the end of it. Understandably, like this is not a place for a family trip. And
obviously you weren't in a situation where your sister could like play a folk song to calm everyone down.
if she'd only had the guitar.
If she only had the guitar.
And Cedar Sinai build you for the windows.
They build you for that, which is like, that's years
They
ago.
always get you. They
always
always get you.
you.
Yeah, so it was stuff like that, which ended up being this like incredible life experience for, what was I, 8 years old at the time, to just sort of be like, oh, the world is a place where is complicated and things like this are happening, and to have a father who could explain to me what just happened and why it happened and get us out of there safely. It sort of felt like I was, my dad was like Indiana Jones or something at the time.
We've got some research here that says you also went to Guatemala. Was that also, did that get sketchy, or was that?
That never got sketchy. That was just beautiful. It was coming up on Y2K, and there was all this talk about what was going to happen and what it was, but it felt important. And it was just after the divorce. So, I remember it was just like a tricky time, and we wanted to spend more time with my dad. And so he wanted to do a vacation with us. And my sister had already left the house, wanted to come and do something with us. So he picked, I think we decided we wanted to do something in the Aztec realm, because there was so much talk about, or the Mayan realm, the Mayan calendar at that point. Mm-hmm. So we picked to go to Guatemala. And it sort of started resorty. Like we were out in Belize, I think, which is just next to Guatemala. And we were on the beach and doing the beach thing and swimming with sharks and all that stuff. And then we decided we were going to drive to Guatemala to be there for New Year's. And we ended up, sitting, there were all these temples. I can't remember exactly. Tikal? It's Tikal, I think, is the name of the ancient Mayan city we were in. And anyway, there's a temple of the sun. And so, this is my dad. He's like, well, let's climb the Temple of the Sun so we can watch the sunset on the millennium from the Temple of the Sun.
Wow.
I was like, okay, fine. And then, of course, it's the most miraculous, beautiful thing. And then camped out, for New Year's, and all these bonfires out there and people celebrating New Year's. And then everyone in the morning before the sun came up on the new millennium went up and climbed up to the top of the temples. And with hundreds of people on top of these temples, we watched the sunrise. So yeah, like
how old were you? How old were you in 2000?
1981, 2019.
So that's a good, that's a good age to see a sunset on the millennium.
It was like the perfect thing for me at that time, and I was so grateful, and it was really matched up with this divorce energy and this like life is changing. Well, I guess it wasn't right after the divorce, a few years, but like that was a painful time, and figuring out what our lives were and what our family looked like after that. I just remember that trip being pretty fundamental.
I do think that would probably put things, not make everything better, but certainly put it in perspective when you watch the sunset on the Temple of the
kind of ruins
Sun.
New Year's.
It does
for
ruin
the rest of
New
your
Year's.
life, though.
Yeah,
you can't really.
When they're like, there's going to be an all-you-can-eat shrimp buffet.
I'm there.
And now we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors.
This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by Nissan. It's time to fuel your inner adventurer in the award-winning Nissan Rogue, Rock Creek.
Hey, Seth.
Yeah.
Tell me about your inner adventurer. Are you a rocky trails guy or more of a snow roads bird?
I'm a snow roads bird. Like to go up my snow roads, maybe pull over at one point, pop off a couple snow angels back in the car, keep on rocking.
Yeah, I was going to say your snow angels are some of the nicest snow angels I've ever seen.
They look as though an angel fell from heaven and just splatted into the snow.
Yeah. One thing I will say, a note on snow angels.
Yeah.
You don't have to do them face down.
What? This is going to be a game changer. What about you, Posh? Rocky trails or snow roads bird?
Well, I'm a bit of both. I do love when you're in a vehicle that can handle some rocky terrain. I like driving slow. and feeling a big old tire sort of creep over a rock and sort of waggle you back and forth. And that's the kind of feeling that you can get with some confidence in the Nissan Rogue Rock Creek.
And I would say a lack of confidence in the car we drove in high school, which was a Renault Look car. And if it was even a little bit rainy, you wouldn't go outside.
Whatever kind of adventurer you are, the Nissan Rogue Rock Creek is ready for you. Thanks to its intelligent around view monitor with off-road mode, the Rogue Rock Creek helps brave adventurers like you and also Seth to navigate around narrow obstacles in tough terrain. So thanks again to Nissan for sponsoring this episode of Family Trips. Adventure calls in the first ever Nissan Rogue Rock Creek. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
Intelligent round view monitor cannot eliminate blind spots. It may not detect every object. Drivers should always turn and check surroundings before driving. See owner's manual for safety information.
Here we go.
Hey, what is the age gap with you and your sisters?
We're all 6 years apart.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty big spread.
You must have a very unique relationship with each of them because it probably was never a time where it felt like the three of you were all hanging out and doing stuff together.
Yeah. I think I'm lucky because I'm in the middle, so I feel like I have a closer relationship. I think for them, I don't want to speak for them, but I think it was a different thing because that's a 12-year spread, which now they're very close, but I think that's happened as they've gotten older. But yeah, I mean, it's all I know. So I've seen other people who are much closer, and obviously our kids are closer. So I think there's a real benefit to that. And you have sort of more of a playmate. But, I think at the same time, like I sort of idolized my sister and I don't know if I would have done that the way that I did had she been closer in age. We certainly fought a lot, but
Josh idolizes me, and it's only 2 years.
Well, that's obvious.
That's
obvious.
So you don't need it.
Yeah.
But I see the failings as well.
Yeah. I think you see it. You sort of say often, the way you see me, the way one might see the millennium, the dawn of the millennium on the Temple of the Sun.
Were you guys always close, or did you have a period when you were younger when it was like, stay away from me?
Not
No,
really.
pretty
We were
much always close.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say like maybe, like I would say like my senior year in high school and your sophomore year in high school was the time we had our own strongest friend group.
Right.
Yeah. But that's
like,
that's just being
but like we
older
never
in high
weren't.
school.
Yeah.
Is it just the two of you?
Yeah, it's just the two of us.
Okay, right.
The best thing that happened at my wedding is we had like a hangout with just me and Josh and my parents. And we were just sort of having a cocktail about an hour before the wedding. Does that sound about right, Posh?
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I've never asked this. What was it like the 2 years I was gone? I went to college.
Right.
And then, by the way, Josh ended up coming to college with me. So we had absolutely shared everything. And I go,
But there was 2 years where you
I was
weren't
like, what
together,
is that?
but-
What happened to those 2 years? And they said, literally all three of them said the sweetest thing, which was, I don't remember. Every one of them was like, I have no memory of it.
I don't. I really
It
don't.
was it was like the sweetest thing to hear. It was like, oh my God, it was
You
so
said-
boring.
You said that was the best part of your wedding.
The best
Does
part,
your-
yes.
does your
and I'm
wife-
not going to
have you
change my
told-
answer now. I see what you're trying to do. I'm not going to change my answer.
I just wonder if she knows. We should
The opening
mention
of my vows were, well, it's been all downhill.
it. Since this conversation with my brother.
Well, the entirety of my vows were like, my parents and Josh just said the sweetest thing.
Yeah, it was just like you get so busy when you're like a junior and senior in high school. You have your whole kind of life going on, which I think is what's supposed to happen because it gets you ready to go off to college and be your own person. I've got a friend right now in LA, and his wife just got this job where she's out of town a bit for these big chunks, and his son just went to college, and then his daughter is a junior in high school. So it's just him and his daughter at home for like big stretches of time. And he's like, it's so weird, but also she's so busy. Like she's just out doing
Everything's happening. Yeah. My kids are so young, but I have friends who have kids that age, and it's a full-time job. I mean, it's like they're getting ready for college, they're writing the essays, they're getting all the test prep. It's nuts.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I mean, I think we're very lucky to have that perspective of. I also have a lot of friends whose kids are like, I feel like a half generation older, and I think it's good to have those friends because they're all like, dude,
Enjoy
it's
it.
like however bad your like sleeping is now, it gets so much worse.
Enjoy
like
it.
when they're like, you're dumb. Do you ever remember a trip? Because I guess too, like just sort of if my math is right on the timing of the divorce, do you remember a trip where it was all 5 of you?
Israel is one of the last big ones, maybe, and maybe that's why it weighs so heavily on my mind too. We did I was really young. That's funny. I actually have a picture of it. This is like from a trip I have no memory of, but that's me and my sister, like in California. You know, that was a trip that we did a road trip that I've had them tell me a bit about. But, you know, they got so busy. My dad was just flying all over the world. He would disappear for months at a time. So it was rare that we would line up and be able to do it. I think we did some ski trips. But usually because of my parents' alternating work schedule, it was like one or the other, which is maybe why divorce happened eventually. But they were always great. But to have the 5 of us together was pretty rare.
Who did your dad write for?
So we worked for the CBC when we were in Canada, and then the Christian Science Monitor when it was a paper and then the CBC moved him as a foreign correspondent to London, where we lived, and then he worked for the Christian Science Monitor, and then he ended up leaving there. And he didn't work for the BBC. I think he started working for Global. Can't remember. I think he might have also gone freelance at that point. But then we moved back to Canada, and then he bounced around a little bit before becoming a teacher and now retired.
Do you have a lot of memories of your time in London?
I loved London. Yeah. I mean, it was terrible. You know, the age, when you go at 8 years old and change your whole life, it was like, you're killing me. This is the end. I can't do it. And so there was about a year of just feeling like I was a complete... just like I didn't fit in at all, and the kids were just brutal. But then, you know, found my school, found my place, found my friends, and then loved it. Yeah. I loved being in Europe because these little trips we would do would be, you know, what you would normally be here. Like, let's go to Big Sur, but instead you'd be in Switzerland, or, you know, just have these crazy little trips in Europe.
Were you devastated when you had to move back?
Yeah, of course. Like, devastated when I had to move, and then when it was time to come back, like, no, wait a minute, this is my new life.
Someone pointed out that's ultimately like everything you bring your kids to. It's like, all right, come on, there's a Halloween party. I don't want to go. And then you finally get them there, and they're like, we got to go home. And you're like, could you agree with one of...
Just say one thing.
Just either be happy to go or sad to leave, or sad to go and happy to leave. But
my therapist has helped me to realize that maybe some of the issues in my life have to do with that, like exactly that moment where you're building a sense of ego and identity, like between 8 and 12, where like you're holding on to anything at all to be like, is this me? Is this where I belong? That's when I moved all the time.
Right.
So by the time I like get to adolescence, it's like, who am I? Where am I? What's going on?
Yeah.
So I've gotten to spend the rest of my life figuring that out.
Did British kids at 8 think your accent was funny?
They thought everything was funny, and British kids are ruthless. At least they were in 1989. Yeah, it was pretty, I remember it being pretty brutal, because at first they were trying to put me in British schools. So like my worst memories were like, let's go try this school for the day. And to an 8-year-old, you go into a British school, it's like you're in a World War II movie. Yeah. They're wearing the little shorts. They don't understand a word they're saying. They're all laughing at you and insulting you and insults you've never heard. And they're not shy about it. And the teachers don't care. It was just eviscerating. I'd come back from these days and be like, I can't do this.
It's also so funny to be like, all right, children, this is Patrick. He'll be here for a day and no longer. So,
have at him.
There'll be no consequences or fallout from how you treat him.
He's a perfect, get him, stick Morgan with a boom. Oh, God. Yeah, so then I ended up finding a school that was a bit more closer to like a Western education there, and had like a mix of kids from all over the world, and sort of found my way and found acting there. Honestly, that was like the first time I was exposed to that. And, you know, once I found that, I started to feel like I had my place. And just as I started to figure that out, it was time to move, go to a different country.
Sure, yeah.
And back to Canada.
Would you travel around the UK a bit as well, or when you traveled, was it mostly going to Switzerland?
Yeah,
or-
we did the UK. We, up and down. We went to Scotland. All over. I think we didn't really ever do Ireland. I did Ireland as an adult, but yeah, there was a fair amount. My parents were good that once they weren't working, we were on the move. We were doing something interesting. We didn't like to sit still for very long.
Yeah, that's great.
So I feel like we got a lot of the United Kingdom.
I want to I'm going to make this a very tortured transition.
Great.
But I feel like when nobody could move, right? And I'm hopefully, is this my timeline right? Is the reemergence of Suits COVID or is it post-COVID?
The reemergence of Suits is strike.
Strike.
Which all felt COVID-y.
Yes,
Like,
it was
feels
that
like
thing
we
of
all
like
just
where-
transitioned
Yes.
one into the other.
When did it dawn on you that it was happening and what was that like? Because it is so unique that a show has a emergence like
It's
this.
completely, it was a slow drip. I mean, I had transitioned into like, obviously sad that the strikes were happening and that no work was happening, but I was also in like, I'm going to embrace this time. Like I'm going to be with my family. We were up at that cottage that I was talking about. It was our first summer there. So I was going full mosquito coast.
It was, having lived through the 07-08 strike, the timing of this past one was way better because it was a summer strike instead
It
of
was a
winter
summer strike.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm just going to be with my family. I'm going to enjoy this and do this cottage thing and pretend I know what I'm doing at this cottage thing and crawling around under cabins trying to teach myself how to do plumbing. And like, I was really pretty grungy and growing the beard and just living this sort of out there life. And then I started getting thinking like, there's no work. There's nothing to be done. I can just ignore that completely. And I started getting these like emails from, the reps being like, hey, just so you know, check this out. It's dropped on Netflix. It's, broke the 1 week record, broke the 2 week record. And then, and I kept just being like, okay, I don't know what this, it doesn't mean anything. Right. What is that? It'll be over in a flash like everything is. And over the course of like those 8 or 9 weeks or whatever, it just became, this record break, like an unimaginable amount of numbers, like 58 billion minutes. I love how we like rank things in minutes watched now.
Yeah. Is it a palpable difference in how often you are recognized?
Yes, it's changed. Okay. And it's also, for me, I guess the recognition had started to die down a bit, but it's also like the people, other people in the cast will argue with me, but I never really had a lot of young people. Even when Suits was like in its heyday, so to speak, there weren't like, it wasn't cool. It was like, hey, my mom really loves you. Can I take a picture? It was not like, hey, dude, oh my God, you're my cross. It wasn't, those people did exist, but it was not the overwhelming amount. And I found that with this run, all of a sudden, like 17 and 18-year-olds are as excited as their moms, which is not what our experience was the first time, which is really cool. So it's not only has it re-engaged people, it's for some reason found like a younger audience as well. Yeah.
Multiple former cast members of The Office when they're on my show, like Rain or John or Jenna, when they come out, like they've all said to me, like the audience is like cacophonous when they come out, and they're always like, that would not have happened when The Office was on. Like that,
because it had that
post,
second life too.
Yeah, that it became a show that everybody watched, on sort of like on a loop, a comfort loop.
And I think because they were a COVID show, right? That happened in COVID.
I think that was a COVID show, yeah.
And so rebirth. I think for both of us, maybe us being post-COVID, there's like an emotional attachment to it that's different than the first one. It wasn't just a show on TV. Now it is a thing that got me through a thing. Like this was a really hard time, and this gave our lives like purpose and direction and made us feel connected. And I think that creates maybe a stronger bond. I don't know.
So you're doing a podcast, which is a Rewatch podcast, and this is my favorite detail. So you and your co-star Sarah Rafferty never watched the show.
Yeah, I mean, we'd seen episodes of the show, but I think what we've maybe 10 tops.
Gotcha.
Of 134 episodes.
And is this sort of just the way you approach all your work, or?
Yeah, I can't watch a thing.
I get it.
Even having this little square with me in it right now is really problematic for me. I'm the guy that if you take a picture of me, I on set,
You don't
they
see
do
it,
continuity photos. Like, okay, look at that. Like, don't show it to me. I don't want to. It
yeah.
gets me in my head. I have some body dysmorphia, whatever it is. Like, it's way better for me to not get in that mind space. And I'm not proud of it. It's something that I wish that I could be better at, but I learned it really during Suits. When, you're going nonstop, you have to shoot the next day. You're shooting, 16-hour days, 5 days a week. It was like, I can't. I just need to do the work. I can't think about the outcome. Thinking I would do it later. Oh, when the show's over, I'll watch it. But then, of course, when the show's over, you're thinking about what the next thing is. So, it just never happened. And then it went into the past, and then I left the show a couple of years earlier than some of the people, and I was like, okay, what's next? And just forgot about it. And was like, okay, that was this wild, life-changing event. What's next? And this resurgence really, for me, was just a wake-up call of like, maybe take a look. Like maybe take a look. Because there's people who are really excited about it, and these podcasts that we've been listening to, like, it's a really good format to do that.
Yeah.
But take a look because, like, you're ignoring it, and that can't be healthy. Like dive back in, like change that thing which has maybe all this like sticky feelings about it, like dive into it and see what that's about, and maybe turn it into a bit of gratitude and like acceptance and joy, because it was a really incredible time that did change everything about my life, and trying to sort of keep it up on the corner of the shelf felt a little weird all of a sudden. So
and then I imagine
that was
also that it must having the podcast must force you to sort of meet it out and do one at a time. Like you can't
and slow it down.
Yeah.
When you're shooting these things, you're like, I've said it a few times. It's like you're running a marathon at a sprint's pace. Like you're going so hard for so long. And it goes, you just miss moments. You don't get to enjoy really any of it right until you get to the end of a season and you go, oh, wow, we did it. And so this is an opportunity to like enjoy each episode and like in conversation with somebody else who was having a different experience while it was happening, talk over the scenes, what was going on for you. Cause we're as interested in that as we are watching the show. Like what was going on for you? What were you doing? Sarah had this totally different experience of the first season, and that she was separated from her family. And I was working all the time because I was, one of the top two. She wasn't in that first season. So she's separate and having this very sort of like, I'm not working enough to be distracted. So I find that stuff endlessly interesting. Sometimes I'm worried people don't really want to hear how the sausage is made. But so far on this podcast, it seems like the fans are really interested in that kind of behind the scenes stuff. And so, yeah.
How much did you interact with Doug Lyman?
Very little. Love him, though. He's so good. He came, I hope this is not taken to school. He came, all I remember, the first meeting was he came to a table read, and he'd really not been too involved up until that
He
point.
produced the show. He directed the pilot?
No, he didn't even direct the pilot.
Okay.
Hypnotic, his company, produced the show, and his right-hand man, Dave Bardis, was the guy on the ground making it happen. He had much bigger things going on, obviously. And then he showed up to the table read, and the first table read, and we're all like, oh, you're here. And we did the table read. And then as if it was like, we were going to start shooting on Monday, And he's like, all right, well, I've got some notes. And he gives notes that you would have given at the like, we shoot in a year stage.
Right.
And because it's him, he's just so friendly about it. It was so matter of fact about it. Like, I think the third act needs a lot of work and we're going to need to restructure it. I remembered them being like, okay, actors, why don't you get out of the room? We're going to have a little chat.
And also, don't go practice your lines.
Yeah.
Because they might be different.
We're going to change it all. Yeah. No, he's great. He was great. I wish we had him more, because he was at the time doing a lot of interesting television, but for some reason, it didn't line up. And I mean, I know he was involved behind the scenes and looking at cuts and giving ideas, but not as much as we would have liked.
Yeah. Hearing you talk about sort of going back to Suits is not entirely dissimilar to The Wedding, in that we had such a different experience of it than everyone that was at the wedding. And now my wife, Mackenzie, is like, hey, can I see your pictures and your videos from like other people? Because in a lot of ways it was a show that we put on. And
totally.
like I've been telling her, it's like we were in a play, and when you're in a play, you never get to see the play.
Nor should you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened for us. We had the most magical wedding. We came out of our wedding just just high on it. It was so wonderful. And then someone sent the video. They were like, "Hey, we cut together the video. Do you want to see it?" And we watched it. And it was a beautiful video. And I couldn't watch a frame of it because it did not.
That's
I was
where
like, this is not my. This cannot do justice to the feeling that I had coming out of this weekend. It's making it less, and I can't deal with it.
That's a real. Talking about not wanting to see a continuity photo. In my head, I am way more dashing at the wedding.
Yeah, this was
Then all of a sudden
I
I'm
was
sweaty.
Prince Charming.
Just like my head's matted. Ugh. Yeah.
I feel like again, every time heals everything. So I'm sure we watch it in 25 years and we can have that feeling again.
You want to be old enough that however shitty you looked at your wedding looks handsome to how you look now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which at this stage in my life is like every week it's just downhill.
Day now, you and I are going to sit down and watch. It's been fantastic meeting you officially. Talking about everything, and now Josh is going to ask you some questions that we ask all of our guests.
All right, here we go. You can only pick one of these. Is your ideal vacation relaxing, adventurous, or educational?
Adventurous and educational are an interesting distinction. I mean, I guess given what we've talked about, I think adventurous, and I hope there's some education in there, but I'll lean adventurous. Yeah.
Oh yeah, very good. What's your favorite means of transportation?
Camper van. Got to go camper van. I'm invested at this point.
Yeah.
Is it so well organized? It has to be so well organized, doesn't it?
Yeah, you can go online. We did one of these architectural digest walkthroughs of our house recently, and I forced them to come do an architectural digest walkthrough of my camper van. Yeah. So it's somewhere online. It's it's quite small, but it's very well organized, and it's got a kitchen and the whole thing. So yeah, I'm a Virgo, so like things need to go where they need to go.
Yeah. If you could take a vacation with any family, alive or dead, real or fictional, other than your own family, who would you like to take a family vacation with?
This is hard because I feel like you've had every family, right? There's no new answers to this question.
No, but we're surprising.
It's stimulating. I talked to my wife about this. Swiss Family Robinson.
That's a good one.
She said Robinson Crusoe, and I was like, are these the same thing? And it sent us down a rabbit hole of understanding.
Robinson Crusoe you don't want to be with.
Robinson Crusoe was the original book that Swiss Family Robinson was like I guess there was a lot of fan fiction, I guess, essentially at the time.
Gotcha.
And that's why Swiss Family Robinson's called Swiss Family Robinson. But yes,
Swiss Family Robinson started on Reddit. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
It was crowdsourced on Reddit. Yeah.
So Robinson Crusoe or Swiss Family Robinson?
Swiss Family Robinson.
Same.
I think Crusoe gets a little darker. I'll go Swiss Family Robinson.
Okay, great. If you had to be stranded on a desert island with one member of your family, who would it be?
I love all the members of my family. To say that at the beginning, I love you guys. My younger sister is an incredible chef, which would be amazing to live with. But my older sister lives off the grid in a cabin on the northern reaches of an island off the coast of British Columbia, where she hunts and gathers and fishes.
Oh, wow.
And that's the person that you need to have on the desert island.
Any guitar fear? Is there any?
Can't go near him now.
Okay.
No, she makes guitar bombs now. That's what she's doing out there.
Oh God. See, you can find her on Etsy. Yeah. Etsy Black, the black Etsy.
It's the 4chan Etsy.
Yeah. The dark Etsy.
Are you from Toronto proper?
I am from Toronto proper, yep.
And would you recommend Toronto as a vacation destination?
It's hard. I recommend, yes. It would be, obviously a city vacation, but I love Toronto. I think it's an incredible city. It's unbelievable food. The people are wonderful. So I love that city so much. Vacations are tough. Whoever wants to just go to a city for a vacation, but go to the city, then head on up to cottage country.
I did stand up there this winter, and I will tell you that the opening joke that went really well, based on just driving in from the airport, is you have a beautiful city. I think you guys can stop building it because there's so many.
That's good.
They're just so every time I go to Toronto, it's just cranes.
It's insane.
Everywhere.
That's a great joke because it is. Yeah, and it's the traffic is. I think it's now considered the worst traffic in the world.
Oh, man.
Literally, that's not hyperbole. I think it is. People say that the 401 in Toronto is the worst highway in the world.
Do you call it T-Dot?
I do not. I call it Toronto.
Okay.
Or the 6. No, I don't call it that either.
I've also heard it called Raccoon City. I don't
Is
know if
that
you've
like
heard
a
that.
Drake thing?
No, that's and I know there's like a Raccoon City in some like horror video game, but it's like you guys had raccoons that would like live in the city all within like they'd live in a 3-block radius for their entire lives, and then you changed your trash cans to have like a little
Yeah.
lip or some lever that raccoons can't operate it, and then
And then they started
raccoons
moving
were
around.
Then they were like losing their minds.
The raccoons in Toronto are pretty legendary. Yeah, you see some
Yeah.
big ones.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, and then Seth has our final questions.
All right, Patrick, have you been to the Grand Canyon?
Well, guys, this is the one. I've been to the Grand Canyon many times, and the closest I have ever come to death in my life was in the Grand Canyon.
Really? Now, a lot of
I have-
people, I mean, rest in peace, but this is happening to a lot of people. Was it user error, or do you blame the canyon?
You never blame the canyon, always blame the user. I had a friend who planned a trip, and I did not follow up. He's like, I got it. I did the details. You just show up. And so we got in a car and we went on a backpacking trip on a route that not a lot of people are on, not just the normal up and down in the main area. And he had just miscalculated the time of year where water was going to be. Long story short, that thing, the sign that's everywhere in the Grand Canyon, have enough water, know your sources, we're fine. About halfway through the first day, we ran out of water, and we thought that there was like water coming or a creek at some point, and there wasn't. And he ended up vomiting and passing out and dropping down, and I was starting to get dehydrated, and there was no one for miles, and I was tearing through the canyon, screaming at the top of my lungs, and I was like, I have to make the decision to try and push forward.
My friend?
Do I eat him right now? It's right now. I should start eating him. No, I just really, it was the scariest moment of my life. I was like, I have to make a decision now that I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. And
How did it resolve?
He's dead, and I left him there. And no, this is the crazy part. This is where it gets biblical almost, and it's hard to believe, but this did occur. I was screaming into the canyon, literally screaming like help, hoping someone up there would hear, which is hopeless. And all of a sudden I hear a clap of thunder. And I look up behind me, and there's this, it was a perfectly beautiful day. This cloud comes up over the top of the canyon and fills the sky, and it starts pouring rain out of nowhere. There's a horned ram like behind me when I do this. Literally, I'm not joking. Up on the canyon.
We just saw. We were just at the canyon. We saw like a
just
big,
like standing
big
there, and then
sheep.
another clap of lightning, and the ram took off, and I was like, I have to get back to my friend, and started running through the rain. Snakes were coming out of the ground at this point because it was raining, so there's all these snakes. I get back to him, and he's finally awake because he's cooled down, and I'm like, we have to walk. We are going to die here. We have to walk. He's like, okay. And for the next 3 miles, we're just pushing, no water, both getting dehydrated, and finally we come up over this ridge and see down that we finally have gotten to a creek. And
So you
we
didn't
spend the
walk
night there.
back to the top. You kept.
There was no walking. Like at that point, you're at that decision, looking at the map, and we're like closer to what should be water. But at that point, we've had so many what should be water moments. But we're at that point where, again, it's so many choices. You're like, and is this the choice that kills me? Do I go back or do I go here? Do I leave you here or go ahead and hope I find someone to come back for you? It was a real nightmare. So that was my first Grand Canyon experience.
Wow. I can't believe you went back. Let me just
Many
stress.
times. I had to expose myself in a different way. That sounds wrong. Don't expose
How was
yourself to
how was
Grand
the
Canyon.
rest? How was the rest of that first trip after that experience? Were you just sort of on a strange high? Or
No,
were you
we were. It
shook?
was really kind of the dissolution of that friendship. If I'm honest, it was too bad. Like we don't keep in touch anymore. It was really just this like we survived this and we could never speak again. Like it was just we were already a bit at odds with each other, and so it was one of those trips where. Like we were doing it to see if we could still be friends and like figure it out. And by that point, it was like, no, this is clearly indicated that this time in our lives is over.
How much water did you start with? Did you have like
The
not-
normal amount, like never
an
enough,
Algae?
I guess. But I was drinking it liberally.
Right.
I was really like, let's go for it. Like because that you showed me on the map where the water is. So it was really dumb.
Ooh, mamma mia.
Dumb.
Well-
but I love the Grand Canyon. Despite it.
we're gonna. I don't know if in the end they're gonna let you be their celebrity endorsement. What a pleasure, man! I hope we
Thanks,
see you
guys.
in person soon. It was really
I hope
great
so.
talking to you.
Thank you. It was
delight.
really
Yeah,
great to
thank
meet
you.
you both. I'm a huge fan. Thanks for
All
having
right.
me.
Thanks,
All
man.
right.
Love to your family.
All right. All the best.
Family trips with the Meyers brothers.